The night before D-Day. A quiet hero's story. It was June 5th, 1944. A cold rain fell over the southern English countryside. Not a storm, just that slow, insistent drizzle that seeps into everything. Your boots, your gear, your bones. In the darkness of a canvas tent, surrounded by quiet tension and the metallic scent of oiled weapons, a young man sat alone, writing. His name was Richard Winters, Captain, Easy Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division. He wasn't praying, he wasn't panicking, he was focused, writing his thoughts in a small, creased notebook, the kind you carry not for reporting, but remembering. Around him, soldiers tried to laugh, to pretend the next few hours weren't the edge of history, but Winters knew better. If this is the last entry, he wrote, I hope it finds you in a free world. Outside, under a pale moon, the largest military invasion in human history was taking shape. Over 150,000 Allied soldiers were poised to cross the English Channel. More than 5,000 ships waited offshore, their engines rumbling like a distant thunderstorm. Over 11,000 aircraft were fueled, armed, and ready. The name of the operation was Overlord. Its mission: liberate Europe from the grip of Nazi tyranny. The chosen landing site was Normandy, a place Adolf Hitler considered unlikely. His generals had built fortresses at Calais, the shortest crossing from England. Normandy, they thought, was too risky, too exposed. That miscalculation would cost them everything. But this story doesn't begin on the beaches. It begins in the sky, in the quiet hum of a C-47 transport plane, with a man named Winters and the paratroopers of Easy Company. Winters led his men calmly, checking equipment, giving nods instead of speeches. He wasn't loud, he never needed to be. He had earned their respect not through charisma, but precision, stillness, quiet competence. Earlier in life, Winters had been just a farm boy from Pennsylvania, modest, hardworking, introspective. He never asked to be a soldier, but when duty called, he answered, not for glory, not for medals, but because it was the right thing to do. He studied leadership like he studied maps. His men knew, if Winters was calm, they could be calm too. The engines roared as the aircraft lifted into the night sky. Men sat silently, shoulder to shoulder. Some gripped letters to loved ones. Others stared into space. Winters closed his eyes, just for a moment. Suddenly, flak. Shells exploded around them, lighting up the sky with violent orange flashes. The plane bucked and groaned as anti-aircraft fire tore through the darkness. Then came the green light. Go, go, go! No turning back. One by one, they leapt into the void. Winters fell fast, the cold wind slicing through his uniform. Darkness swallowed everything. Then, a jolt. When his boots touched French soil, he was alone, lost. No rifle, no radio, no idea where the rest of his company had landed. He moved quickly, navigating hedgerows, avoiding patrols. Gunfire popped like firecrackers. All around him, shadows moved, some German, some American. He found one man, then another, and another. He took command. One young private looked at him, trembling, and whispered, "Lieutenant?" Winters simply replied, "Stick with me. Do what I say. You'll live." That was all they needed. Just before dawn, Winters was summoned to a field command post. The situation was urgent. A German artillery battery at Brécourt Manor was hammering Utah Beach, where American forces were beginning their landing. The shells were deadly accurate. If the battery wasn't taken out, hundreds of Americans would die on the sand. There were no maps, no air support, just orders, and time running out. With only 13 men under his command, Winters crawled to a rise, observed the enemy position, and sketched a plan in the dirt. 4 105mm guns, arranged in a line, protected by machine gun nests and German infantry. Probably over 50 defenders. Winters moved like a machine, leading from the front. He cleared trenches, covered his men, gave orders with absolute clarity. Within minutes, the first gun was silenced, then the second. One soldier, Private Dawson, just 19 years old, leapt on a grenade to save his comrades. By the end of the battle, all 4 guns had been destroyed. Over 20 Germans killed or captured, and the shelling of Utah Beach stopped. But while Winters fought behind the lines, others were dying by the thousands on the beaches. At Omaha, American troops were pinned down in the surf by machine gun fire. Bodies floated in the tide. The sand ran red. At Juneau, Gold, and Sword, Canadian and British forces fought through bunkers, landmines, and barbed wire. Every inch was paid for in blood. But they pressed on. By nightfall, the Allies had secured all 5 beachheads. D-Day had succeeded, but it wasn't the end of the war, just the beginning of its final chapter.
D-Day was more than just a military success. It was a tremendous win for the Allied forces, but it also marked a clear point when the moral fight against tyranny started to gain ground. It was a moment when free nations banded together in order to fight for liberation. D-Day is remembered not just for its overall victory and for the strategic and military importance that it had over the years, but also for the courage and sacrifice of the soldiers that were involved. By the end of June 6th, the Allies have managed to gain a fragile yet stable foothold in these beaches, and the operation ends up being declared a success. Because they managed to get this success, in the following weeks, the Allied troops would send millions of soldiers into France in order to battle Germany. Many people see this as a successful operation that had a clear start and a clear end, but in reality, D-Day was more than that. It was just the beginning of the end for the war.
Years later, Richard Winters would reflect on that day not with pride, but humility. When asked if he considered himself a hero, he would always say the same thing. I served in a company of heroes, and in the quiet cemeteries of Normandy, among the white crosses that stretch endlessly toward the sea, Winters, now an old man with white hair and quiet eyes, walked alone. He paused at one grave, then another. He remembered every face, every name, not just the battle, but the burden. D-Day wasn't won by generals. It wasn't won by grand strategy or overwhelming firepower. It was won by small groups of men, alone, afraid, and determined. Men like Richard Winters, men who led not for recognition, but because someone had to. Men who fought not for medals, but so that others could live in peace. June 6, 1944, was not just a turning point in war. It was a turning point in history, and the tide that turned that day never turned back. In memory of the men of Easy Company and all those who gave their lives on D-Day, lest we forget. History isn't just about dates and battles. It's about people, choices, and moments that shaped the world. With Paladin, you can dive into powerful historical stories in minutes a day. It's like Duolingo, but for history. Discover the courage of forgotten heroes, the twists behind major events, and the human side of history, all in an app designed to make learning feel like storytelling. Download Paladin now and start your journey through the past, because history should feel alive.